Hello there again. It's Spiritual Psychic Cynthia Killian here, also known as Psychic Cynthia. And welcome. Welcome to this time of spiritual psychic inspiration and learning. And I'm on a little bit of a roll here, so today we're still talking about the runes, one of my favorite subjects, as you probably know, because I really do consider myself to be a student on the path of the runes, a seeker, rune initiate. The runes really speak to me, and I love to share what they're saying with others. So what I wanted to do here in this video today is just really focus in on something I get asked about a lot, and that is the blank rune. And I would like to just cover that, my thoughts about that for you, and give you something that might help you if you're going to use that, or help you decide whether or not you're going to use that. And the blank rune is very controversial among rune readers. There are definitely people who will not read on a rune set without the blank rune. And then there are other people who are more, you might say, traditionalists, who, just recoil at the thought of the blank rune. Although I'm a traditionalist in many ways, I don't recoil at the thought of the blank rune. But I can see why some would think that. And I guess for some, it's very important to have the blank rune. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, first of all, I should clarify that, in the runes, if you're reading your runes, you're using them for divination, or to work with your inner spirituality, and it depends on which Futhark you're working on. But most of us do work on the Elder Futhark, which is the set of runes that is 24. I'm aware that there's 2 other Futharks, and some people do work with the younger Futhark or the Anglo-Saxon Futhark. I'm not one of those people. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just not what I do, okay, currently. Who knows what the future will hold with that. So the Elder Futhark has 24 runes, and then we see, to my knowledge, you don't see this widespread until the 1980s, and really a lot of it might even go back to the Book of Runes by Ralph Bloom that was published in the 1980s, I believe. Which was the first rune book I ever read, and many other people. And then later I learned it was, the author had taken a lot of his own ideas and kind of superimposed them on the runes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but might not be good if you're trying to learn the traditional meanings. So, although I still like that book, I do. But I wouldn't make that my only study of the runes. No, not at all. So anyway, he has a blank rune in there, and that influenced a whole generation of people that were learning to read the runes. So after that time, we see, at least in the United States, that the blank rune comes into being, and it's included in all these rune sets. And, it's basically used by many people who use it to represent fate, the unknowable, or the will of Odin, which is the will of the gods. The will of the Norns, choice, those kinds of things. Many people that read it, and if you buy a set of runes that has it in it, and especially if it comes with the book, it will speak about some of these concepts. Now, the reason that people who are a little bit more traditional, like myself, don't really use the blank rune or don't use it much is because we already, most of us, I understand there are differences in how we interpret runes. But many of us who are more traditionalists we believe there's already a rune in the Futhark to mean those things, to mean fate, the will of the gods. And that would be the Perthro rune. Can you see that? Perthro. That would be number, I think it's number 14, somewhere around there. Okay. It's in the second row. It's after the Uaz rune, the shamanic rune of death and transformation. And then we come to our fate. We come to our life path. It's the dice cup, the roll of fate. So I don't need a blank rune to represent that for me. And as far as Odin's will goes, I think there are other runes in the Futhark, not just maybe one, but others that I might think represent divine will. But Odin himself is represented, in several of the runes, but especially in rune number 4. Would it be 4? Yeah, the On Zeus rune. That is Odin's rune. At least Odin as the communicator, Odin as the wanderer, as the traveler. So if you do read the Blank Rune and you're like real religious about it, and you're wondering about those of us that aren't so big on it, we don't need it because we already have an understanding that some of these other runes cover that. Now, I did say earlier I'm not anti, and that's true. I'm not totally anti. And in this set of runes that I have here that was made for me by a friend and a student, there is a blank rune that was included. And I've left it in. Now, if I don't feel like having it in, when I'm doing a reading, I can always go through and take it out. But a lot of times I just leave it in. And by the way, if you get a set with a blank rune, but you already know you're not going to use it, don't throw it out, okay? Because even if you're not going to use it, what if you lose another rune? You could write or paint on there, that blank rune, the symbol for the rune you lost. So, I think it still has a use one way or the other. You could just set it aside. But let's say you have it in your set. And let's say that you're kind of like me, like maybe you really don't care about having the blank rune one way or the other. How would I read the blank rune? Since I already have another rune to represent the will of the gods or whatever, there's a lot of ways I would read the blank rune. First of all, if I draw the blank rune, it could be the rune's way of saying, hey, we've got nothing today, right? Because this is nothing. It's not actually a rune. By the way, the blank rune, just so you know, I appreciate it if you appreciate it and you want to have it in your set, but it's not a rune, really, because there's no symbol. It's just a blank, okay? So it can mean that the runes are drawing a blank, in my experience, that they can't help you with that issue. It maybe could indicate that the issue is unknowable, but I don't really believe that. So let's work with that. The issue is unknowable. What would I do if I was just drawing one and I drew this blank rune? What do you think I would do? I would draw another rune. That's simple, right? Because personally, I don't read the runes to get a blank. If I'm feeling that I need to seek the wisdom of the runes, in other words, if I need to make an inquiry to the runes, there is a reason I am needing guidance. I am not needing a blank. Now, if you associate with the blank rune that it is associated with maybe, you could say it has an association with free will, maybe. Like you get to decide, this is not set in fate. I could see that. I think that's a valid possibility as a meaning. I would still draw another one to tell me more about that. Maybe to tell me more about, I have choice here. I have free will. I get to choose, but, tell me more about what would be the best way to choose, or what direction do I go in? What do I focus on in my choosing, for example? Does that make sense? So I guess what I'm saying is that if you're going to work with the blank rune, I suggest not working with it by itself. If you only draw that, I suggest drawing another one or even more to modify the blank rune. Or you could use the blank rune as a modifier for the other runes, in that it could be indicating that, there are some forces at work that have not been decided yet. A way to think about it, in a mythic level, is that those threads of fate have not been woven yet. Perhaps that's one way to think of it, if you're going to use it. I mean, if you just don't have it and you don't use it, that simplifies things, right? Because you're never going to get it. But again, I mean, if I have a set that the blank rune is in, a lot of times I just leave it in there. And then I get to decide whether I'm going to read it or not. That's how I work it. I don't associate a lot of importance on the blank rune. Unlike others who feel that we need a few others, they think that you have to have the blank rune to know the Wheel of Odin. I absolutely do not believe that. And belief aside, I have found with my experience in rune reading, says it's actual experience versus belief, that I can get answers without having a blank rune in the back. So something to think about. But work with the blank rune if you want to. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I am also saying that it's not a rune, actually. So we need to, if we're going to actually get guidance from the runes, you need to draw more than just the blank rune. And look at the runes around it, how it modifies that. And that's it. That's my lesson on the blank rune for you. Do you have thoughts on the blank rune? Do you use the blank rune? And if so, how has that worked for you? I would sincerely be interested in learning more about that. I am sincerely open to hearing your dialogue, and I might even reply back. I might just read and learn from you, or maybe you can learn from each other. And if you haven't used it, that's fine. You just don't use it. But for those of you who have and have found success, I would be interested in hearing some of your comments about that. And for those of you who are traditionists and are like, oh, the blank rune has no place, I get that. Believe me, I get that. I don't really think of the blank rune as being a rune. It's something else, but there's a part of me being intuitive. I think, well, this has entered the collective consciousness, even if it's fairly new. It has entered the collective consciousness. Somehow it has merged with the runes. So I do think it might have some significance. I'm not willing to give it a whole lot, and I'm not willing to give it as much as the time-tested, venerable Elder Futhark. But maybe it has a place in our modern world. Maybe we need, 2 runes to remind us of Odin, right? Maybe we need that blank rune to draw our attention to something, because we're kind of dense in our modern society. So maybe we need 2 runes to represent fate, just in case, because we might miss it otherwise. I don't know. But I think, like I say about many things, I mean, if it has meaning to you, if it has significance to you, then you should use it. But just understand, I think really I'm making this video more for people who have that in their rune set when they get it. And, you're confused when you draw that. Like if you draw that in a relationship question, just draw another one, okay? That's easy. So until next time, may the powers of the runes themselves heal you and bless you, uplift you, guide you, and inspire you. Bright blessings.